I want to start off by saying congratulations to Andy Beshear and the Kentucky Democrats for this victory. So, as we all know, Governor Beshear just got reelected, and there's a number of takeaways from this. Now, I've looked into this, and there are some things that are surprising, and there are some things that are not surprising. Let me start with the non-surprising ones first, because I think that's a lot of it is more obvious and a little more simpler to break down. So, I actually just looked at the debate between him and his Republican opponent, Daniel Cameron, who is the current Attorney General. And because he ran in this race, there's another Attorney General now, another guy who just got elected for Attorney General. Now, he's a Republican by the name of Russell Coleman. Now, let's start with this. So I looked at the debate, and I will say that at least 55 to 60% of that debate, his arguments were, well, this guy can't be trusted because he is endorsed by Joe Biden and the communist far left. And, and the state's doing very poorly because of him, and his policies are unlikable and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And of course, that doesn't sit well with people because, well, that goes into a few surprising factors that I actually recently learned. And of course, Governor Beshear is talking about the things that he has done and the things that he intends to do in his second term. Now, before I get into that, let me just start by saying this. I had to write some of these down right here because, one, I couldn't believe it. And two, some of these numbers are, again, I'm not going to be able to memorize this off the top of my head. So I just want to make sure I get this right. So let's look at the population for Democrats and Republicans in the state of Kentucky. Now, as we know, Kentucky, for the most part, is thought of as a more red state. Just so we're clear, to those of you who are not that into politics, blue is Democrat, red is Republican. I'm sure at least 99% of you know that, but that right there is to educate the 1% who may not know that. So, 43 out of all the registered voters in Kentucky, at least according to this survey and this poll that they did, 43% of Kentucky registered voters are Democrat or Democrat leaning, which I got to be honest with you, that number's a little higher than I thought, but I'm sure that's a major increase over what it used to be. 44% Republican or lean Republican. That's a lot lower than I thought, considering the fact that Mitch McConnell has been an elected official in that state since 1984. And then you have 13% that is unaffiliated / other. So, of course, that usually means that those people are independent, or maybe they are just not comfortable sharing their political views openly. Not everybody talks about that, and I get it. It's, politics is not an open discussion for everybody. Now, let's get into some of the things that he has done for his state. Now, one of the points that the Republican candidate brought up was, we have the state has the highest unemployment number in years. Okay, well, I actually just looked that up, and it turns out that the unemployment rate right there is 3.7%, which means that the employment rate is essentially the opposite, which is about 96.3. Record low unemployment in Kentucky. Kentucky's all-time record for lowest unemployment over the longest period. Double-digit wage growth. 2022 incentivized hourly wages for projects up 11.5% over 2021, which itself was already the second highest mark over a 7-year period. $1.2 billion in disaster relief, $828 million for those impacted by Western Kentucky tornadoes, $400 million for those impacted by the Eastern Kentucky flooding. He led the way on passage and decriminalization of medical cannabis, providing long sought-after relief to Kentuckians with chronic or terminal conditions, including veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. He signed 627 bipartisan bills. Wow. Amazing. He delivered more than $412 million for clean drinking water, providing clean drinking water, clean water systems, and sewer access to an estimated 4,200 unserved and over 88,000 undeserved homes. Restored voting rights for more than 187,000 Kentuckians. Issued executive order on third day in office that automatically restores voting rights to those who have completed their sentences for nonviolent, non-sexual offenses. Support for law enforcement. $15,000 across the board raise to Kentucky State Police, leading to the largest recruit class in years. Oh, that's funny, because I thought that all Democrats wanted to defund the police. What happened to that? Where'd that go? And by the way, Biden also advocated to put more police out in the force too, as with my governor Gretchen Whitmer did. So yeah, let's keep talking about how the Democrats want to defund the police. Expand early voting. Kentuckians now have 3 full days of no excuse early voting. Signed, let me make sure that okay. Sorry about that. Kentuckians now have 3 full days of no excuse early voting. Signed income tax relief for Kentucky families. I don't see much under that one, so I'm not sure the details on that just yet. So let's see. Making Kentucky a national leader in job growth, ranked number 1 in August of 2022. Wow, this is something else right here. Expanded access to health care for over 400,000 additional Kentuckians, includes dental, hearing, and vision care benefits. Another thing that I, along with many other Democrats, have been pushing other top Democrats to do is saying, hey, Medicare has to include dental, hearing, and vision. At least do that and lower the age just a little bit. $1.6 billion in federal funding for the Brent Spence Bridge Corridor project. Construction will be completed with no tolls. Made Kentucky the electric vehicle battery capital of the United States. $6 billion investment at Blue Oval, SK Battery Park in Hardin County, 5,000 jobs. $2 billion investment at AESC Gigafactory. Is it Gigafactory or Gigafactory? I haven't seen that word, so I know either way is a mispronunciation. Gigafactory in Warren County, 2,000 jobs. Best 2-year period in state history for economic growth. 2021 saw $11.2 billion in planned investment and commitments to create 18,000 jobs. 2022 brought $10.5 billion in new investments and 16,000 jobs. So this Republican candidate who's saying, oh, it's jobs and we don't have enough, and where's this coming from? Maybe he's not thinking that on his own, or maybe he didn't say that on his own. He probably read that out of somebody's handbook. You know, I'm assuming it was either Mitch McConnell or Donald Trump that gave him the handbook. I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure he is a Trump supporter. He's in the state of Kentucky. Mitch McConnell's been an official there since 1984. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a hand in it. I don't know. And there's a part of me that kind of doesn't care. So, and as a result of doing those policies, and keep in mind, the state is 43% Democrat, 44% Republican, 13% other. According to a Morning Consult poll that was conducted between July and September of 2023, he had an overall approval rating, the Democratic governor, Beshear, an overall approval rating of 60%. His approval rating amongst independents was 58%. And here's the part that is surprising. As I had alluded to earlier, there's a surprising part, and now I'm getting ready to reveal it to you. Before I say that right quick, I'm sorry to do this, but before I get into that, let me just tell you. If a Democratic governor has an approval rating of anywhere of 15, 20, or 25% amongst Republicans, that's considered good. Do you know what this guy's approval rating is amongst Republicans? We're not talking 20%, 25, or 30%. His approval rating amongst Republicans is 43%. An absolute shocker. And by the way, let's get into the numbers for the state House and the state Senate. So the Kentucky State Senate has a total of 38 seats. And out of those 38 seats, do you know how many seats Democrats have? Only 7. The other 31 seats are obviously Republican. The Kentucky State House has a total of 100 seats. You know how many seats Democrats have there? Only 19. 80 of the seats are Republican, and 1 seat is vacant for whatever reason. I don't know. I haven't looked into that, so I don't know if a person, stepped down or something happened to them or whatever. But it kind of doesn't matter which political party has that particular spot, because even if it's a Democrat, it's going to be 20 Democrats, 80 Republicans, which means 8 Republicans still control that sector of the state government. So you have a Democratic governor that has a state legislature of 138 seats, and only 26 of those seats are Democrat altogether with the State House, State Senate. And he was able to get all these things done. As I said earlier, he signed over 627 bipartisan bills. I don't know. That guy must have some really, really good negotiation tactics. Amazing. Now, one thing that the Republican candidate pointed out was, he said, well, the governor talked about he was going to give teachers a 5% increase and then an 11% increase. And guess what? They didn't get it because he didn't deliver on that. Okay, now Beshear also points out that Beshear says educator pay raises will be a priority of second term. This is according to WHAS 11. The governor outlined his 2 major priorities for this upcoming legislative session: securing an 11% pay raise for educators across the state and universal pre-K. If we're not paying our educators enough, he said, we're just impoverishing our own communities. Okay, so again, this is the problem with a lot of the Republican candidates. They want to attack the Democratic policies, but then they're not providing their own solution. It's just, oh, he's talking about giving teachers raises. Oh, he's not going to do it. And he's supported by Joe Biden and communist Democrats and far left and socialists. Like, they're just throwing out key words, little trigger words. Oh, well, they talk about, it's just like Louis Gohmert and Ted Cruz and them, like Texas Republicans. Oh, Democrats talk all this stuff about gun legislation and gun control, and they want to take away our guns. And brr. Okay, so then what's your solution? Okay, that's what I thought. So, again, this is what Democrats have to realize. This right here, and I've always said, the Democrats especially need to take a note from Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer. Now I can add this guy to the list, because just the very things that he's proposing and the things that he already has done, Democrats need to follow in those footsteps. And it means that, listen, the majority of the state, it's a Republican state. And this guy has a 60% approval rating as a Democratic governor in a Republican state. You have to do good policies. And listen, you don't have to go all the way to the left on everything. Not every candidate. Listen, I don't expect every candidate to be a Bernie Sanders or an AOC or a Nina Turner or anybody in that section of the Democratic Party. You don't have to go, because it's not going to work everywhere. Let's face it. Progressive liberals need to understand this. You can't go everywhere and say Medicare for all, which I agree with. Free college, Green New Deal, 15 wage, more stimulus checks. I agree with all of that, but that's not going to work everywhere. It obviously isn't going to work in deep South, deep red states like Mississippi, Louisiana, maybe not Georgia for right now, although they did cancel medical debt. It's definitely not going to work in like Alabama or Oklahoma or any place that's like that. But if you run in states that are either blue or mixed but kind of somewhat slightly lean more red, just run on basic stuff like, hey, wages for the teachers, wages for the construction workers, wages for the UAW workers, which is what Biden and Harris are doing right now with them. I mean, I would say that if the Biden-Harris White House and other top Democrats jump on board with a lot of these things, it will increase their approval ratings greatly. And it's not like Republicans will follow suit, because Republicans told you that they're not for any of these things, but yet they don't have a plan. So But that's the takeaway from this. So, and I'll tell you, I was surprised when Beshear won the first term, when he ran against Matt Bevins in 2019. I didn't think he was going to make it because I said, well, it's Kentucky. It's a red state. This is a state that Mitch McConnell holds. And Trump had won the state. And of course, most Republican presidential candidates won that state. I mean, Mitt Romney, John McCain, George Bush. I'm sure Bob Dole maybe have won. Bob Dole is a maybe. I mean, Clinton was really popular, so I got to look at those numbers again. But pretty much every Republican presidential candidate post-Clinton, Bush and up, they've won the state. So like I said, Bush, McCain, Romney, Trump, and now this guy wins it. So Trump won the state twice. McCain, so, I mean, I'm kind of repeating myself, but you get the point. But this tells you right here, you run on the right messages. And he had good messages, not just on policy, but on rhetoric during the debate, where it's like, listen, this guy's just running attack ads against me and he's just blaming everything on me. We're not going to get things done by just blaming everything on each other. We have to stand together for the people. And that's very parallel to Obama's speech from 2008. We're not red states. We're not blue states. We're the United States. And if you are a person with even a little bit of a brain and a little bit of morality and a little bit of sympathy, how can you argue against that? So, again, I'm glad that he won his state, for, re-election. And I hope he keeps the baton going. And like I said, it's not just about, to be fair, don't just say the good things. You actually have to do the good things and actually fight for the good things. And like they said, his priorities for his next term is to give the teachers an 11% raise and do universal pre-K. And hopefully he delivers on that. And if he does, his approval rating, I'm sure, will be even higher. Right now, he's at 60%. That's beyond an A+ for a Democratic governor in a red state. So again, congratulations to Andy Beshear and the Kentucky Democrats. Stay tuned.